The big thing and this has been like a legacy thing. Whenever in marketing operations, the biggest problem is understanding the attribution and how do we store that information. So what was the first touch? What was the last touch? Right? And how do we properly make sure that we save those fields in the marketing automation platform? We save those things in Salesforce and things like that. That's usually like the biggest problem that we have to have. I'll pause there. Any questions about that? Because like there's specific ways to do that. Like it's pretty straightforward, but most people suck at it.
Yeah, we could probably go really deep on how to do it exactly, but I understand the problem. I've experienced the problem big time, the problem of attribution for content work.
So the next thing that I think about, like SEO teams and marketing operations teams typically are never going to speak to each other, right? Like they're maybe going to see each other in a weekly meeting, bi-weekly meeting, or a monthly meeting for the marketing team. They don't have a lot of interaction to each other with content and SEO, but the operations person is typically responsible for like making sure that the CMS is working. So like, how does the CMS work? How do the operations around the CMS work? And then the SEO or content person is just trying to get things loaded in there. So there's typically a junction point in regards to those two things. And then how do they ultimately collaborate on their project management and their process to make sure that content can get pushed out? And then how does that content then get promoted? Because every time you launch a blog post, as you know, with working with McGaw, you have to promote it, right? So when there's a new blog post, you tend to send an email, or you tend to put a Slack notification or a LinkedIn post or things like that. So there's now the promotion aspect, which is where marketing operations gets involved to be able to help distribute that content. Those would be the other things that come to mind. So that's what's top of mind for me based on what you've said so far.
Yeah, so we have attribution and the whole flow of the life cycle of each content piece. Do you feel like Martech people understand how content works or why it's valuable? So for instance, when they're setting up attribution, they know what to look for and such. They understand the long-term character of the game. That's very different from ads, for instance. Do you feel like they have enough understanding of best practices and the fundamentals of content and SEO?
Well, I think there's a big difference between somebody in Martech and somebody in marketing operations. So I guess like let's be more specific, maybe.
How do you differentiate the two for yourself?
Martech is very broad, right? So because
Yeah.
Martech could be analytics, it could be data, it could be marketing operations, it could be marketing automation, it could be AI. Like Martech is like this nebulous thing.
Okay.
Marketing operations, though, is pretty specific.
So let's focus on marketing operations.
Okay, so going back to the question, like when we think about marketing operations, do they understand how content marketing works in the long tail of it?
Yeah, or just the fundamentals, the principles,
Yeah.
how we can get revenue out of doing content or SEO.
Usually no. They have a general understanding like that it exists, but they're not demand gen people. Most marketing operations people that I have met, they have some of a marketing background, so they get that it works, they get how it works, like so they have general knowledge, but they are process people. They want to have this box goes to that box, go to that box, go to that box. Like they're just very process driven.
So would you say they need to understand more of that? Would it be helpful to them to understand more about what makes a good blog article, or how SEO growth, like organic traffic growth, gets executed? Or
Not
so
really.
much?
Not so much. No, it's not. Their job is usually not to drive demand, which is what SEO and content marketing is creating demand and capturing that demand. Usually, marketing operations is more about the processing of that demand.
And so when we go back to attribution setup and how the two teams, marketing ops and content marketing, don't talk to each other much. What I've experienced at SEMrush was, for instance, that we had an attribution model that was super hazy and really, really complicated. And we were even being told very often, this is really complicated. And then we never really saw into how it works. It was really hard to get to an explanation of how it works. And at one point it changed, and I was just lucky because it made us look a lot better than the old model. And I think the new one was actually more accurate, because I always felt like the old one was underestimating things. So I'm looking at it from the perspective of me as the content marketer. But what would you say would help the marketing operations people, and for instance, that specific task of setting up better attribution? Like, what would they need to understand, or who would they need to talk to? Something they don't do, or they usually don't do yet, that would help them do their part better and have less of a silo. What would help marketing operations people set up measurement of content performance better?
Yeah. Well, I think there's two things. One, marketing operations people, one of the problems with marketing operations people is that they think of everything as fields in a CRM. And they don't think of things as data, as in analytics. And I think marketing operations professionals need to better understand how data works and how event properties work, how identify calls work, and the difference of those things, where like a CDP would come into play, like, and how that ultimately stores your data in a data warehouse. I think that is a really, really huge opportunity for most of those people, because the attribution, the way attribution is stored in a marketing automation tool, it's very, very limiting. It doesn't give you the full picture. The attribution, that's where like marketing operations professionals need to get better at understanding the actual analytics taxonomy, and really start building into that schema. And I think that's where like the big hurdle is, because most marketing operations people are thinking about, like, I have a field name and I have a field value. Okay, great. I have a one-to-one match. However, that field name and that field value was filled out because somebody took an action. They signed up, right? So those fields got filled in because of that action. There's a behavior. So you're very familiar with this because of like analytics. That's the part where I think most marketing operations people really just don't connect the dots. And they need to have a better understanding of like the lexicon of how those data works. I have to jump to another meeting in a second.
Yeah.
So I do have a hard stop. What's the last question I can answer before you send me an email and tell me you want to come work here?
Make me an offer, please. This was good. You confirmed a few things I was looking for, and I can take it from here. So no more questions now that you need to go.
Can you do me a favor? Just because I'm super busy, can you just send me an email and just put like the subject line, "Send me an offer"?
Yeah. Okay. Will do.
I'll talk
Have a
to you
good
later,
one.
Branko. Great to see you,
Good luck
buddy.
with the move.
Bye.
Great seeing you.
Thank you.